right.
Is my mic mute?
No, your mic is not muted, and we just went live too. It's so Bob. No, it's now Bob. All right, Bob's already screwing things up. Welcome to episode 36 of OW All by the Numbers. I am not your host, Totem. Somehow he entrusted me, Edinar, to run this show. I don't know why, but here we are. So I'm joined tonight by a cast member who you haven't heard in a while. We are joined tonight by Blazing Bob. Boomer Bob, how you doing, bud?
Hey, what's up, Ednar? Just chilling and counting the days until the Overwatch League starts back up.
Even though we don't have like half the information we need, but that's besides the point. We do have a special guest tonight. It is our continuing episodes of talking to people who create fantasy websites. So tonight with us we have KG from DraftBuff, the mobile app connoisseur of fantasy esports drafting. KG, how you doing, bud?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm really excited to talk fantasy esports, Overwatch, and yeah.
Okay. Well, we are glad to have you here. Like I said, Ramses isn't here because, well, he sucks. And he realized he's forever third, and he just sucks at fantasy sports. So he's like, maybe I shouldn't embarrass myself by trying to talk about it with people who create it. So, and then we have, Totem not here harassing me in Twitch chat because, you know what? I hate him. No, he's not feeling that great, so he will not be joining us tonight. But let's get on to the show. OW All by the Numbers. We did our draft, our host draft, so me, Bob, Ramses, Totem, last Wednesday. So we did our first official draft. So we did it so we could obviously know more about the platform going in. It's definitely different because I'm not used to drafting on my phone. That is something I really had to get used to. Bob, what was one of the big takeaways you got from drafting on DraftBuff?
That it was awesome. I mean, it was downright the best. Like, I love the other two sites. Don't get me wrong, but I got to give credit where credit is due. It was the best drafting experience I've had to date. It was fast, snappy. Everything was easy to see, easy to read, and I don't have one of the huge. I've got a normal iPhone 10 or X or whatever it is, and it was all easy, legible. Something I really loved about it was there were little write-ups for each of the players. Now I didn't agree with all of them, but I agreed with a lot of them, and I thought it was just a really cool touch to have those.
Oh, for sure. Now, KG, have you partaked in any drafts on DraftBuff yet? Like actual, not testing out, not
Right.
like, we'll see if this works. Like legit, you and your friends will get together to do a draft.
Yes, we have. I've done one. I've done actually multiple for every esport we support. So I've done multiple for Call of Duty, Overwatch, and League of Legends. And in fact, slight tangent, but we support multiple types of leagues for League of Legends. So we support both the LCS and the LEC, which, if you didn't know, that was like the NA and EU versions leagues. So I've done actually an LCS, an LEC, and a combined LCS/LEC league. So I think the best way to understand your product and also to make it better is to actually use it every day. So I try to do that. Like, I try to set my team every day, go about it the same way I'd play any other fantasy sport. And I think that like helps me decide these are the things I need to work on next, and along with all of the customer feedback that we get, of course. So
Okay, so
All right, well, that explains a lot then, because the type of polish that was on that app you had to have already done this with some other esport, because it was not janky in the slightest. So I didn't know that. So that's kind of interesting for me, is that you've been doing this for a while. When did you start? Just real quick.
Start building DraftBuff or just
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, it's an interesting history. Also, just want to say thanks, guys. Appreciate that you guys liked it, and would love to hear some feedback from y'all, like things you think improve later too. But so we started in Call of Duty, and that was sort of the first esport we supported, and we actually were a website first. So we had a website last year, and we were doing daily, so totally different than what we are now. And it was fun. It was more of a side project for me and my co-founder Dylan, and he was really the one who kind of started it initially, and I joined on like about a month later. But towards the end of the season last year, we were looking at our numbers and kind of understanding how many people came to the site and how many people came back, and we realized that daily has a little bit of issues with retention, in that you might, especially for Call of Duty last year when you had tournaments every month, you came for a tournament and then you wouldn't check the site for another month because there's nothing to do. And then you'd come to another tournament, maybe, but then maybe you'd just like forget about it and drop off. And so with the franchising of Call of Duty League, we realized, okay, like we can do a fantasy league setting and we can do it on the app, because on our website we had 82% of users using the mobile version of the website anyway. So we're like, why are we investing so much in our like desktop experience? Obviously, like I'm not saying those 18% of users aren't important, but we should be mobile first, I think, and prioritize that view. And so then once we got through Call of Duty, we were just kind of looking at what other esports have a similar league setting that would be good to support. And League of Legends and Overwatch were two of the kind of obvious ones to jump on right away. So.
Okay, so it sounds like Call of Duty was kind of like the kind of the stepping point, almost like you're like, okay, it was Call of Duty, let's do this, and then we'll bring in, then like how can we expand and stuff like that. Now, which league has gotten the most attention so far, or most drafts? Would it be Call of Duty or would it be League? I assume, or not Overwatch.
Not Overwatch, but Overwatch is quite big. They're actually not all three are not far from each other. But League is the biggest, which is surprising, considering our whole customer base was based in Call of Duty. But League also is just just
It's
most
just massive.
show. Yeah, it's the biggest esport in the world. So we were really pleasantly surprised with how many people signed up for our league, fantasy leagues. But Call of Duty is right there with it. I would say those are roughly the same. And then Overwatch is not so distant third. Like there's a sizable population of Overwatch as well.
Yeah, because right now we will say that you are the only place where you can actually do an Overwatch League draft. Like High Noon is not up yet. They should be up soon, and Fantasy All they're daily, so like they're not going to be doing like draft 3 weeks beforehand, type of situation. So you guys right now are the only ones that we can actually draft, so we can get our fix.
Yeah. and we wanted to do that. We wanted to open up early because I think drafting is like one of the most fun parts, honestly.
Definitely.
So we wanted to open up early. It does come with a couple of caveats, I will say. A lot of the data isn't in the official API yet, so we've done a lot of manual, basically like going through all the players and making sure they're on the right teams, and and we're not even like fully up to date. Like there have been more signings and things in the last couple of days that we need to catch up with.
Yeah, we actually noticed a little bit of that. I think it was Bedoshin might have been one. But he had just signed like 2 days before that.
Right.
Yeah, if our listeners could just do us a favor and just tweet at Blizzard and Pete V, and just tell him, dude, get on this, because this is big, and I don't think you guys realize how big it could be.
Now, I don't know, KG, if you saw what was today. Did you see what they kind of showed today?
I did, and it's exciting. I know they haven't actually put up. I'm assuming you're talking about the stats on the website.
Yeah, they put up like
Yeah.
kind of what seemed like advanced stats on the website, and obviously none of them work. So it's a repeat of last year when none of them actually worked. But it seems like they're going to get more stats now. With yours, you're using the simple, kind of like what we did last year. We had the kills. You lose points for death, damage, healing. The very basic numbers. Now, if they start introducing more, like let's say blocking or stuff like that, have you even talked about adding that in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're limited by the data that we're given, but from our side, there's no like adding a new scoring type is pretty simple. I think it all depends on timing to some extent too. Like if they release this stuff a day before the season starts, we probably won't be able to get it in for like people drafting. Um, if they release this stuff tomorrow, maybe there's like a much better chance we can get it in before people start drafting and actually put it into place.
Yeah,
The
because you
interesting
don't.
thing is,
I was just gonna say because you don't want to like switch up the scoring on people who've already drafted 2 weeks
right,
into the season.
Yeah, all of a sudden, main tanks are actually
Like the
like good
best
to
players
play.
in the league.
Yeah.
And
Although, if Sigma sticks in, who knows with that kind of damage? So, we'll have to see.
but
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead, Kiji.
yeah. We just we're totally open to adding more stats, and our system could fully support any new stat. But it really just depends on what we get. So
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna just start asking you personally some old school questions here. First game that actually got you into gaming.
into gaming.
Yes, not like
Hmm.
oh I played Super Mario Brothers growing up. What actually got you into serious gaming?
That's what got me into gaming. So stop.
You did you play
My
did you
dad
play Super
picked me up,
Mario's
put
competitively?
me. He put me. Yes, I did. My dad would bet dudes at his dart club that I could beat him in Super Mario. He'd pull the chair up. I'd stand on the chair and win, and then he would buy me a toy with the winnings. So yeah, it was my first stint into gambling too. But this is not about me. Sorry.
I have many of questions about that story in particular. We will get to another time.
That sounds amazing, though. That sounds like a lot of fun. Um, so I'll answer in two parts. The first like game I played really obsessively, like wow, this is amazing, was Pokemon. Um, that was sort of my entry into just gaming in general. Like I had a Game Boy and played, you know, red version like crazy, and that was when I was a kid. The first game I got into competitively on more of like an esports setting was actually Hearthstone.
Nice.
So I was I'd never played a competitive card game before. I'd never played Magic or anything like that. And I just downloaded Hearthstone on a whim because I'd played Warcraft 3 in the past and I was like, "Oh, it's based in the same universe." And I got totally hooked. I'm a big like strategy game person. Like my one of my favorite games of all time is Civ, the Civilization series. And
Great series.
yeah, super fun. I spent way too much time on that.
I think
uh,
everyone who's played it for longer than 10 minutes has spent way too much time on that game.
Oh yeah.
but yeah, I got very competitive in Hearthstone. I was legend every season. I used to compete in tournaments and things like that. So
Nice. Okay. So now you said you had the website before, you guys made the app.
mhm.
What made like did you go in to the season and just were like I know you said, an ungodly amount were just using the mobile, but like did you guys go in and just be like screw it, we're just making an app only, nothing else? Like
Yeah.
what was the like other than like the majority of people, what was your thought process? Like could you just put
Well, I
more
mean, he
work
did
into
say
Could you
You
just
did say they were a website first, though.
they were, but they kind of went all in on the app.
Mm-hmm.
Is
No,
that something just so you could concentrate all your efforts on the app and not kind of split it between both?
yeah, I mean, it's a great question. We, like I said, we really realized that most of our users were mobile anyway, and it's all about priority and how much time we have. It's just we have a couple people helping us out, but it's mostly me and my co-founder Dylan. So we decided if we wanted to support three different esports, and if we want to build like a really awesome experience, maintaining both a website and an app is just that much more cost, and slows us down a little bit in terms of how much we can build. And we decided to go for the app route. Now we think this isn't like a one-way door in any way. We still have very much planned to have a website and fully support everything on the website as well. But getting this first version out on the app in kind of the setting that most of our users were using anyway, I think was our priority number one, and testing this out and making sure it's a really, really awesome experience. And eventually we will get to the website, and it will be really useful, I think, especially for drafting, because it is a small screen for drafting. But I think for most other parts of fantasy, like managing your lineup or checking your scores, the app is just a more natural place to do that.
Yep.
It really is. And I have a question on that. Now, I've worked in IT and I've been the guy that creates the server that the websites and apps are put on. But I've never actually made like a website or an app. I feel like apps would be easier to program rather than having to worry about all the mobile browsers, because I just remember web devs just like cursing at mobile because it was such a pain. Is it a lot easier?
No, I think it's different challenges. I think the web, that's definitely a challenge, figuring out how to make something look good on tablet, mobile, and desktop. I think there's separate challenges with apps in terms of the browser, like, whatever browser you end up using does a bunch of heavy lifting for you in terms of performance and making sure things work the way they're supposed to, handling errors. And that is definitely helps a lot. With an app, you kind of have to build a lot of that yourself, and performance is much more important. And you have to worry about, you know, the different phone functions that some phones have and some don't. You have to worry about the versions, and the browser kind of handles all of that sort of infrastructure level type things for you. So when you're building a website, you don't have to worry about that. So it's just different challenges, I'd say, and um, they both have their pros and cons.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I definitely agree with you. Like the app is just that's what I've been on high noon and the others is like, dude, I need an app. Like I'm on the go a lot. I'm not gonna pull out my laptop, and mobile's way too like small, and so I think the app is definitely the best route.
Yeah, and like you said, like the draft may not be the best for the draft. It's awesome for the mobility of it, but like everything past the draft, 10 times better on the app. Like 10 times,
Oh,
it's
you know
so much
what?
easier on the app to do everything
One of
else.
us should have done it on an iPad or a tablet. I didn't even think about that.
I didn't think of that either. We have another draft coming up. I think this Thursday. The Heroes Never Die, or OWL, of Watch League Network. Community one. I'll try and use the tablet for that. Now, which one? We've heard this from a few other people that we've had on. Which one was way more annoying? Apple
Would
or non-Apple?
ah.
um, uh, different, different. They're different. That's a good question. Apple is easier because they only have a couple different phones that you're trying to support, and even the phones that you're trying to support, they mostly work the same. So in certain ways, performance, for example, is 10 times better on our iPhone app. Like, it's sad for me to say because I personally have an Android, but our iPhone app performance is just buttery smooth compared to Android.
I would
Um,
say that's kind of across the board for most apps.
yeah, and it's partially to do with Android. There's just there's
Too many.
500 different devices you have to handle, and one of the bugs we hit with Android is, oh, this text doesn't render on this specific brand of Android from this year. Whereas you don't really have to worry about that with Apple. The flip side of it is that Android is a much more open ecosystem, so uh, you get a lot more control over things. Apple is a little bit more closed and doesn't let you control as much things as a developer. So
Okay, that is legit the opposite of what we heard previously. Like we had Soul Drink
Yeah,
on.
but they were talking about mobile, and they were basically talking about
Safari.
the Safari and Chrome apps on the on the Apple phones, not really the
The
app
app.
building.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. Another super duper important question. Who did you take first in your draft?
AKM.
No one takes AKM.
That's a great. I had two Overwatch leagues, and I believe in one of them I chose Profit first. I think I had like the fourth or fifth pick.
Not bad. Our number one, if you go on Twitter right now, you can find the aggregate scoring from all the community fantasy Overwatch people. Profit number one DPS. Just
Oh
saying.
wow, okay. Well, I should share these numbers with you because I have some really interesting. We got some really interesting numbers based on our drafts, like average draft position and percentage owned and highest variance in drafting and things like that. I don't know if y'all would be curious in hearing some of those stats, but
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I love stats.
And I'm hoping to see those specific stats on the app too at some
Yeah.
point.
No, that's definitely on the roadmap. Just haven't got around to it yet, but I think they're really cool and something we want to share with everyone. But I think Profit was one of them, and I want to say I had a really late pick in the other one, and I want to say I picked Sinatra, but I don't necessarily remember. It was a 8-team league, and I think I had the last pick. So
Okay. Now, a couple of things. You had a big release this past weekend with Call of Duty.
yeah,
So, what were the numbers like on the platform for the opening weekend for Call of Duty? Do you know that
great.
offhand?
We know rough estimates because it was a combination of both Call of Duty and LEC and LCS.
Okay.
So sort of mixed in there. So it's a little hard to tell which was which. You can kind of tell by the timings, but there was an overlap as well. But honestly, like way more than we expected. It was pretty.
It's always good.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. We were kind of blown away. We were really, really excited. Everyone was checking their team, tweeting at us like, "When are you updating scores?" Like we're like, "Yeah, they're going through. Just they're on a little bit of a delay."
We're dealing
but,
with Blizzard API here, people. let's slow your roll just a tad.
Yeah, I will say the Riot API incredible. Like just super professionally done. Works really well. Updates right away. Like we had zero problems with the Riot API this weekend. Can't say the same about Activision Blizzard, unfortunately. But I'm hoping for some improvement there, especially on the Overwatch side. I think they've had a couple of years to go over it, and I think they're going to do better, hopefully. So
You would think so. We definitely had our issues last year where like maps would just be missing.
Yeah. I
So,
would have thought season 2 would have done a lot better. And had Nate not bowed out, I think it might have.
it might have, but
That was a big thing on Nate's list of things to tackle. So
yeah. Are you guys expecting a lot of uptick this week going in for Overwatch? Because we really have the Overwatch League coming around the corner. I assume you guys are expecting a pretty large uptick in the Overwatch community.
Yeah, definitely. And in a lot of ways, Overwatch I think is going to be end up being uh, a really great experience because we have now sort of gone through everything with two other esports, and we fixed a lot of bugs, and we've kind of figured out what works and what doesn't in terms of drafting and how the first weekend goes. And so I think Overwatch fans are going to have like a really great experience the first weekend because we've sort of been through the fire already a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. There's a lot of like features and things that we added pretty late in the Call of Duty and League of Legends timeline, like auto drafting and time drafts, for example, that Overwatch fans are going to have for pretty much most of the time that they're able to draft. So that kind of stuff I think is going to be really great, and we're definitely expecting a lot more Overwatch fans over the next couple weeks. And also I think we want to sort of prioritize Overwatch a little bit more now that we've gotten the season underway for the other two.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, like it's one of those things where you get the Overwatch community who's had 2 seasons now of fantasy, like that people are used to. So now it's kind of become a thing with Overwatch League fans.
right.
It's Overwatch fantasy is there with Call of Duty. That's not what Call of Duty League fans expect is fantasy because they didn't even know where to watch it till the morning of. Like,
Yep.
so how can you expect to do fantasy? So I fully expect it. Now, why is totem? Why bananas? I have no idea what totem means. So totem's just
Oh
trying to throw me. Oh,
no, I think I know.
okay.
In our app, we have an in-app currency for acquiring avatars in our app, and the avatars are basically little mascots that can cheer for your team, and you can emote with them, and they're sort of like virtual identity in the app. And our currency is called bananas. And the reason why they're bananas is because Dylan's favorite fruit is bananas, and his gamer tag is actually Rey del Plátanos, which in Spanish means King of the Bananas. Um, so that's basically the only like story behind bananas as our currency.
So the man is a Winston main. What you're saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's get into some of like the draft buff Overwatch 101 because there are some
Mhm.
things that are different on draft buff than a lot what a lot of people are used to. So the scoring system defaults, we have our normal, death, healing, and damage.
Mhm.
The one people are not used to is points per elimination. What made
Uh,
you guys think to use points per elimination? Is because, like, in COD, that's a much bigger deal? Or
mhm.
have
Yeah.
you kind of like, we'll put it there, and if they don't like it, they can take it away? Or was there any, like, rationale behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think fantasy is always a personal thing. So one of the things that we want to make really, really clear is that everything is editable. You can edit any of these scoring systems. The default is there, just a suggested default. But if you want to if you want to count only healing and just over index on those supports, like have a team of 3 supports and only count healing, you can do that. So you don't even have to have tanks in your roster, DPS in your roster. You could just make a fantasy league with 3 supports and only count healing. Um, I think that's a little weird. Might not. Maybe it's fun. I don't know.
No, that'd be weird. Like, I don't think that'd be fun.
uh, but to basically, we think everyone has their own ideas of scoring and how they want to play, and that they should be allowed to do that. That being said, defaults have a lot of power because it is the suggested method, and a
Hmm.
lot of people don't change the defaults. So the reason why we wanted to go with these 4 metrics is that they evaluate, we think, kind of holistically based on the data we've given, which that's basically the data we're given, those 4 things. Um, they evaluate holistically how a player did. And fantasy is not necessarily about how they performed in a like team setting, which I think people find a little surprising. Like a lot of people think, oh, like fantasy should mimic exactly what the esport or sport it represents. It's like, no,
Not
fantasy
even
is,
close.
Nope.
fantasy is just a way, like the best running backs in NFL fantasy are not the actual best running backs in the NFL. They're just, the ones that are getting a lot of carries and putting up yards.
Yeah, it's the Blake Bortles effect.
Yeah, exactly. So fantasy is a totally different beast with its own scoring and rules, and it's more to keep people engaged in the games and have something to cheer for when your favorite team's not playing. That's really what fantasy is about. And so we think the more stats and the more kind of things involved in that calculation, the more interesting it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we wanted to include all 4 of the stats that we had access to.
So anyone out there, if Bumper somehow gets picked up by a team, whatever you do, do not draft him. Because dude will die randomly for no reason. Like, hey, I'm going to just screw with them and charge this person off the map and die with them. Even though I didn't need to.
The reason is because he hides behind corners and tries to get the other team with a cheeky shatter and things of that nature. But you talked about something we didn't really ask you at the start that we wanted to was, what's your background in actual fantasy sports? Because it sounds like you've been into that a lot longer than fantasy esports.
Yeah, definitely. I started playing fantasy football with my high school friends when I was in 9th grade. And fun fact, we are still in the same league. We've played every year since then. I, humble brag, have won the last 2 years. I'm pretty excited about that.
Mahomes, or have you had
Uh,
Mahomes on your team?
I had Mahomes 2 years ago, and then I had Lamar this year.
Okay.
So, I drafted lucky or well, whatever you want to call it. I love the hat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really what made me so passionate about building fantasy esports, is that I've had the same group of friends since 9th grade playing in this fantasy league, and this is the way we keep in touch with each other.
Yep.
Like, this is the way I hang out with my high school friends, because we all live in different parts of the country now, and this is how we keep in touch, even when we're at home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, and we might see each other. A lot of our conversation just revolves around fantasy, and how we're doing, and we trash talk and things like that. And so I think it's an incredibly social experience, and our mission at DraftBuff is to build fun and social experiences for esports fans. And I think fantasy is like a great way to be not just like a fun experience and compete, but also to build friendships and build like connections with people. So
Yeah, definitely.
I actually have a follow-up question to what you were just talking about like, being in a league with your friends for however many years you've been in it. Like, I'm in one now for 16th year right now.
right.
Do you have any plans for like continuing same league to the next year, like maybe with keepers or something like that? So like you can stay in the same league with a group of friends. You don't have to all rejoin the same league every year. You can stuff like that, like the stuff you're used to with like fantasy football.
You could do that even without keepers too.
You could, but in like staying in the same group, not everyone disperse, come back and join the new league the next year, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's farther down the road for us. We're kind of getting started with the league and working on a lot of the quality of life fixes and more stats and things like that can help for now. But I think as we get closer towards the end of the season, we're going to look at all that stuff. And I've personally been in, like I said, a league for a very long time, and I think that's where the power of fantasy leagues is like keeping that league going season after season. So absolutely.
Okay. Oh my god, you made me talk about Blake Bortles for like the 30th time on this show. But it's so true. He's the perfect example of what fantasy sports is Blake Bortles.
Yeah. Had a wild year this year.
Yeah, you're like, oh, who's the number 2 fantasy quarterback? Blake Bortles. Didn't they go like 2-14? Yep. Yep,
Not the
they
name you
did.
expect to hear. Yeah.
So, all right. So, is the scoring system for DraftBuff averaged out like it is in fantasy Call of Duty?
Yes. So this is actually, I think your original point was, we're talking about how this might be different than what people are used to. Um, and I know a lot of people played High Noon, and High Noon's awesome. I actually played it last year too, and we've talked to Soul Drink, the creator, a lot, and he's a really nice guy. Um, but our scoring system is slightly different than High Noon's, beyond just counting deaths as well, is that we do a average based on the amount of games you play, as opposed to the best score. So if you play 2 games in a weekend, we don't take your best; we take the average of the 2 games, based on for each stat that accrues. So that means that you could start off the weekend and your player went off, and your score might be very high. But if they throw a dud the next game in the weekend, your score is going to go down, which is sort of unexpected. We found a lot of Call of Duty fans were like, "Why did my score go down?" And it's like, well, your player didn't do so well the second match, and that's why. And the reason why we wanted to do average is that we think if you have a really one soft opponent and then one really tough opponent, that doesn't mean that you did better than someone who only had one opponent that was really tough. It should be a holistic measure of how you performed in a weekend, and we think that average kind of reflects that better.
And is that one of those? Can you change that setting, or is that setting uh just one of the for sure ones you have to go with?
Right now, it's we support 2 settings technically, but we're only exposing one. So the other setting we do support is just a pure sum. That doesn't really make sense because you can play a different amount of games. So uh, then you're just kind of only getting the players who play 2 games in a weekend. So that's not very fun. Um,
Yeah, definitely. I would have to agree with that.
right now, it's the only one we have. We have heard a lot of interest in Best, especially because High Noon had it last year, and I think it's worked well for them. So that's something we're looking at closely. We haven't fully implemented it yet, but we're definitely looking at it, and depending on how much feedback we get that that's something people want, we might go for it. But I think from early results, although uh, average might be a little surprising for people in the beginning, most people actually like it a lot more. So at least in the Call of Duty side. So we'll see how it turns out in Overwatch.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I think you'll find a kind of a people either love it or hate it, and then you'll have a large portion of people that are just like, it's fantasy esports. As long as it's fantasy esports, I'll take it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things where I want to see different aspects of like different ways it goes this way or this way. Because honestly, I don't really know what scoring system averages will look like, but I'm very intrigued by it.
Mhm.
So that is definitely something new. So now you talked a little bit about like the customization for like team sizes. You could do 3 teams or 3-player support only, healing only for some stupid reason. Um, but do you have like a cap? Like, is there a certain amount of like players in a league you can have, or roster size, or stuff like that?
Yeah, I think we do cap it. I'm forgetting the exact. The number depends on the pool, the esport, basically like how big the league pool is.
Okay.
But there is a cap because at a certain point you won't have enough players to like. Not every team in the league will have a starting lineup, so you can't do that. Um, but I think you can have. I'm pretty sure you can go as long as you want with bench. So you can have like every player in your league drafted if you want. I don't recommend that. That's
Boring.
then yeah, it's boring, but good.
And one thing, like I don't see it now on the app. I'm assuming we'll have it because this is so clean. is like stats pages. Like, like weekly stats for you. Like, you can go in and look at, like, who's top in damage, who's top in, like, so on and so forth. Will we have something like that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And right now we're actually working on, building some stat views for this is kind of what I was talking about, that Overwatch is going to be a great experience because a lot of the stuff we're building now for Call of Duty and League of Legends and for Overwatch is just going to be there from the get-go. So yes, I mean, stats are obviously the most important part about fantasy in a lot of ways, and you want to be able to slice dice them. You want to be able to see the ranking of players. You want to see on my scoring system who are the best players. All those type of things we're working on.
Yeah, I can't wait for the show. I'd love to see the stats you were talking about, like percent, of the players being owned across all leagues, because that'd be great for like who to grab from the waiver wire segment and stuff of that nature. It'd be stats can help us as a show tremendously.
Actually, if if you guys are curious, I have the average draft position and ownership pulled up right now.
Oh, yes.
Cool.
If you guys had to guess, what would be your top 5 average draft positions, so like highest drafted players?
Choyobin 1 would probably be number 1 for me.
Jonak's probably pretty high.
Both are in the top 5.
Prophet?
Jonak is actually number 1.
Jonak's 1?
Yeah.
Prophet?
Prophet, yep, is number 3.
Sinatra?
Yeah, he's super popular.
No, surprisingly. I was surprised with that.
God.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's one support and one off tank.
Support Violet.
Yeah, Violet is number 2.
And off
That's
tank
who I took
Fury.
number 1.
Fury?
Yeah, Fury is the last one, 5th.
I was waiting for some crazy thing like Surefour, so some crazy ass thing like that. Like
Jake.
What? No. I mean, go ahead, draft him. But you might be disappointed with Jake's output this year on stage. Throwing it out there.
One of the good things and sort of bad things, I think, Bob, you were mentioning earlier about how we have a rank and analysis for each of the players, like a little blurb about each of them, which actually, I don't know, I think y'all know D Hulky. He's like a big, another Fantasy Overwatch podcast. He actually was the one who helped us create those. So shouts to him to making those.
Oh yeah, those are super cool. I mean, I think that was the first thing I saw. I was like, oh, dude, they have little write-ups for everybody. It's freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shouts to D Hulky for that. That was awesome. But yeah, so because we have rankings for all players, we actually are seeing, players are slightly influenced by that. So the where players are drafted are not so far from the rankings because you're subconsciously or consciously you're kind of looking at the rankings and being like, oh, okay.
And in regular fantasy sports too.
You look at the dreaded best available list.
Well, and the best in traditional traditional fantasy sports, they've actually gotten really good at it because people that auto draft end up doing really well. And, it cracks me up.
Oh yeah, no, it's crazy, and yeah, D Hulky, shout out to him. I know he's done a lot of work with both you guys and over at High Noon, writing articles over there. That man is all about fantasy, and I love it. Speaking of D Hulky and the articles you guys get and the blurbs and all that stuff, one of the big things I noticed is the news section that you guys have for each individual league. Now, I obviously don't know that much about COD or League, but for all the Overwatch news, you have literally Gamehouse. Every article that they post is in your news blog, like team previews, player spotlights, 6 OWL players primed for a breakout season is the most recent one, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that will? Can you set like I don't know this offhand? Sorry. If you set it, will those push to you automatically on your
Yeah,
phone?
so it's great that you brought that up. That is something we're gonna be adding very soon. So we have, a lot of different news sources that we aggregate from, and the Game House is actually one of our. We're pretty close with them too. They're great guys, and they do a lot of Overwatch content, specifically Overwatch fantasy content. They're really good at that, and so. Um, but I think during the season, our plans are to kind of make a notification system for big news. Um, so say, breaking news, someone, I don't know, gets like has to take a leave and is out for the weekend, or player uh, moves or something like that. Something that would be like very relevant to fantasy fans. We're going to be sending out a push notification for those, and
For
then
the people that like own that player, is that what you're
it'll
referring to?
it would probably be for all like Overwatch players, because even if you don't own the player, you might still be interested in whatever happens.
Grabbing whoever's
Yeah,
backup. Yeah.
yeah,
Or
Yeah, good call.
trading, or
yeah. But that's something we're actually in the process of building, and I think it's gonna be really fun. I think it's gonna be a great way to like engage people during the season. But I love the idea of what you were mentioning of just even having notifications for each new article that was posted. Like that's something that we could definitely do as well.
yeah, whether people want it or not, like turn on, turn off, or whatever, something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
One thing I do want, and Totem pointed this out in chat, is I'd be curious to see how, because we took Goopy from the Draft House, D
Mhm.
Hulky, basically every foul you know content creator out there, and we did our aggregate rankings, and I would be interested to see where our list ranks up against the average draft position.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
might have to work something out here.
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to share that data with you, and if y'all want to talk about it on the show
Hmm.
next week or a couple weeks, whenever, I think that'll be really fun.
Except, can we exclude? We have one person on our network, Booger, made some questionable choices.
Lower
SBB was in his top 10.
messes with the averages,
Yeah, right? Who puts SBB in the. Oh, he did change it? No. I harassed him too much till he changed it. Dang it. But that's actually super cool. Yeah, that'd be really nice if we went ahead and did that. So let's see here. Whoa. Getting a call while I'm podcasting. Heck yeah. So next up, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The API. the dirty words in fantasy Overwatch is the API. Now, Overwatch did say they are no longer going to be using the public API for the data. We've heard this talks about the API between Blizzard and the fantasy platforms, but without, because I'm assuming you've talked to people, and I know you can't really talk much about it, but how confident are you that we'll see accurate numbers this year?
We're pretty confident. We also, the API gets flack for understandable reasons. Obviously, we weren't fully super involved with Overwatch Fantasy last year, but we heard stories and followed and read it, and talked to Soul Drink a bunch about it too. And it gets a lot of flack, and understandably so. But it also is really, really cool at all that we even have that kind of thing, and that they're giving that to the community to run this kind of stuff. So I will say I will take an API over no API, absolutely. So thank you, Activision Blizzard, for doing that. Um, in terms of confidence of how accurate it'll be, I feel pretty good about it. I think there's a year under their belt. They seem to be investing more like in the league in terms of this localization strategy. I feel pretty good about it. We do have a backup plan. So we have a third party that also collects this data that can give us the stats if necessary. So we're prepared in both cases in case things don't work out the way we want. But I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Okay. Yeah, because that's like that is one thing where the numbers were pretty accurate last year, but there would just be whole maps missing.
Yeah, I'm just worried about them being in so many different locations. Like, whose job is it to upload the stats, or is it going to be live uploaded? Like, Blizzard did have last season a really cool stat board where you could basically go and query all kinds of different data, but we never got that. It was only the casters and the desk with access to it. I did get to see it, but didn't get to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
You should just hack their system, Bob. I have a sneaking
Well,
suspicion you would know how to do that.
pretty sure that system was only local. So I mean, they were putting just the basic stats up to the web.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean we'll see how it all shakes out. I feel pretty good about it. I think they understand that the community is important and that a lot of people play fantasy and really like it, and not even fantasy, but just people like having stats and data to
Yes.
analyze and kind of just play around with. And I think they realize that taking that away doesn't make sense. Like they're trying to encourage more people to watch their esport and more people to be interested, and this is a great way to do that. So.
Okay. So I know this is the first year of all of this, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask, what can we expect for like updates and stuff like that? What any updates in the pipeline that we can maybe expect to see? Like whether it's start of the season, maybe mid-season, or things you guys long-term goals that we haven't talked about already.
So, first thing is we update very regularly. You could maybe even argue we update too often. I am usually doing a new feature or a little tweak or a bug fix every day. So the app is literally like a constantly changing animal, and I think for the better. And I think that's because it's brand new, and so there's so many things we're just finding out and figuring out as we go. And we post all of our update notes in Discord. So if you're in our Discord, there's a release notes that pretty much gets updated like every day or every couple days with all the things that are new. In terms of the exact things that we're planning, definitely a lot more stats. I think is a big priority for us. Right now, we just have a game log of basically the last games that a player has played, and then once the season starts, you'll see the actual stats they accrue for that weekend. But we want to do what you were talking about. Be able to slice and dice top players, sort by a specific amount, like all those kind of things we want to add. So that's kind of number one on our list. And then number two is what I was hinting at before with the bananas is kind of increasing our gamification and user presence and social aspect. So the second part of us is, if you think about our mission as fun and social, the fantasy is sort of the fun part, and the social aspect is the other really big pillar that we want to focus on. And so that's things like a more rich chat experience. So right now you have a chat for your league in the app. You can post and talk to your friends, upload images, but we want to add you can taunt and emote your friends. You can post your fantasy score in your chat. Your league events show up in your chat. Really make this a rich chat experience. You can react to messages, you can mention people, all those kind of things you'd expect in like a normal chat experience. And then along with that, we want to do more of our gamification and kind of support the banana ecosystem, if you will. So more avatars, more customization, being able to customize your team name, customize your team logo, be able to emote different things, being able to see like a leaderboard of top players, just grow that kind of community outside of fantasy itself, in terms of having fun with friends. Because as much as fantasy is super important to us and is sort of our bread and butter, we think the social part is equally as important. Like we want it to be with friends, having fun, meeting new people, trash talking, of course, all those kind of things.
I do a fair bit of trash talking myself. I wouldn't say I go overboard, but I basically am the best.
That's that's one of the best parts of fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if you don't talk, like I don't care if I'm in dead last, I'm still talking shit. Like,
So now what we need is you to add a button when you beat someone that you could just push it straight to Twitter.
be like, congratulations, you won. Send to Twitter.
That is probably actually gonna end up happening at some point.
There we go.
Definitely.
Or if you lose, it just has a picture of, Ramsey's face. Be like, don't worry, you'll do better next time.
Just to give like an example, in the fantasy football league that I was talking about with my high school friends, the lowest scoring team every week has to write a 500-word essay and send it out to everyone else about why they lost.
Oh God.
I think that kind of stuff is so fun. Like that's really the kind of experience we want to like promote for everyone. So.
Oh yeah, I love those kind
of
stuff.
Things. Yeah, basically stuff that's like if you've ever seen the show The League, stuff like that. The Sacco. What's crazy is my good friend from high school actually was the cameraman on that show for the first 4 seasons. Shout out to Johnny.
I mean, Rafi Bomb. Sorry, had to. Love Rafi. Okay, I mean, this is weird because normally I'm not the host side of things. I'm usually the one talking too much, and Totem has to shut me up. So I think we're done a little earlier than normal tonight, which is weird.
It's a totally different thing. Like if I'm on a show, completely different from when I host a show. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. You're more responsible when you're the host.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a little more boring too, but that's besides the point. So before we close things out, I have Star Wars trivia. So I don't know, KG, if you pay attention to the end of our show, but I always have a random question at the end, and it's been Star Wars these past 2 weeks. So, what famous Star Wars character made their first appearance in the Star Wars Holiday Special?
Wow.
Holiday Special? I don't even know about this.
Oh, yes. So if you don't know about the Holiday Special, it was never released on video, but bootleg versions have been circulating for years and are all over the internet. And
check this out.
And George. I've watched it. It is truly the most god awful thing I've ever seen in my life. And George Lucas actually said, if I had the time and a sledgehammer, I would track down every copy of that program and smash it. Like, it is possibly the worst thing ever. So, Bob, I will tell you this. It is not one of the main characters. It's not, you're not looking Chewie, R2, C-3PO, Leia.
When did it debut?
The original trilogy.
Yeah, but was it after or was it between the movies?
It was between the movies.
So was it between 4 or 5 or 5 or 6?
Oh, God.
Because you said the first appearance, so I got to know which movie was the second appearance to know the new character coming in.
All right, hold on. Let me see this real quick. 6.
It was before 6.
It was before 6.
My guess is Bib Fortuna.
No. Way more popular than that.
I'm going to guess Boba Fett.
Ding, ding, ding. Boba Fett first made his appearance in an animated spot in the Star Wars holiday
So it
special.
had to come before episode 5.
Was it
because
episode
you saw
5? Oh, it was episode 5.
Yeah, you saw Boba Fett at the very end of episode 5.
Yeah. So, but it was before episode 5. So, first appearance of Boba Fett was in an animated segment of the show.
I will say
I actually did know that.
I actually did know that beforehand, so that was fair. But
I knew that because of watching a YouTube video on the history of Mandalorians, because I was watching The Mandalorian on Disney, and they actually showed the cartoon. You're
I'm
muted.
It happens once a goddamn episode. Yeah, it was. Yeah, don't waste your time and watch it. Whatever you do. Like, pour acid or something in your eye and consider you're in a better day. So, all right, that will end it for tonight. The best way you can show support to the show is by giving us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. Although iTunes is probably the easiest. So any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcome. I will offer us insight into how we can make a better listening experience for you. We do also have something that you can go to, which lists all Overwatch podcasts, fantasy and non-fantasy, over at Overwatch Recall. So you can find a listing of several Overwatch League, and Path to Pro podcasts over on our website at owlandshow.com/OW where we do episodic listings every Sunday night, except this past Sunday because Totem is sick, so he's slacking. To keep up to date with the podcast scene, follow Overwatch Recall on Twitter at OW Recall. And then you can also support our podcast network via Patreon. So if you would like to show some additional support to our network of Overwatch shows, consider pledging via Patreon. Tiers start at just $1 a month, and more information can be found over at patreon.com/OWL Network. And you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Boomer Bob, who disappeared on me, Brendan, Jay-Z, Owl, Kesha, and Agent Life in helping our network grow. And then, Bob, where can they contact the show?
You can contact the show at via email, contact@owlnshow.com. You can find us on Twitter at @OwlByTheNumbers. The website is www.owlnshow.com. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. Our Discord is discord.me/OWLN show. And our Twitch is twitch.tv/OWN show.
All right. And then you can find me on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar. Bob, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. What about you, KG? How can we join your Discord? That's what I want to know the most, because I want to join it right now.
Yeah, you can follow us at DraftBuff. It's at DraftBuff on Twitter, Instagram, and then the Discord link is in both of those bios as well. So feel free to join our Discord as well. And yeah, definitely download the app, play Fantasy Overwatch. Even if you've never played Fantasy before, it's just a really fun way to keep in touch with friends and also have a little bit more fun during the season. And just wanted to give a quick shout out to all the people who helped us with our Overwatch product, especially D-Hulky, HeebyGB, you guys. We really, really are just excited to build something awesome for the Overwatch community. So,
well, thank you for coming on. We're glad to have you. And you know what? We'll see you all in the draft room.
All right.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Championship. Sorry.